So this is called Unified Field Theory Cover-Up. And this is what Wikipedia has on Lancelot Law White. And he was born in Edinburgh, Scotland, and he knew Einstein, and he was working on unified field theory, and it connected to what Boskowitz was talking about, and also there was an experimental work carried out on unified theory by Leo Baranski. You can come to the unified field theory from other directions, but they all seem to end up with coverup as well. So proceeding with this unified field theory thread, which is Lancelot Law White, Einstein, and Baranski and Boskowitz. So I think this is Lancelot Law White. It's a photograph. It's various people say is him. This is Leo Baranski, and he was experimenting with a ray gun. So at this site it says Baranski, the scientist erased from history, could have changed the world. So Baranski's virtually erased from the history books, and he experimented with resonant frequencies, and his findings could have made it possible to offer cheap and clean energy to all of humanity, etc. So I'm going to give a video clip of a person talking about Baranski, and the person talks about Baranski after talking about Wilhelm Reich and Royal Rife. Now, these scientists made lots of claims which the mainstream doesn't seem to want to accept.
Anyway, I obtained a copy of Newsweek, March 4th, 1963, and it's right here. It's got on the cover McGeorge Bundy, JFK's top guy, you know, about 9 months before JFK was assassinated. He's the big Skull and Bones Ford Foundation guy. But at any rate, here they are talking about not Royal Raymond Rife, but Leo Baranski, and he's doing research into very similar things. It's called a shot in the head, and he's about to do a reputable experiment as a psychologist and a physical chemist, where he's going to shoot himself in the head with microwaves to target ATP, adenosine triphosphate, inside his brain. That's, of course, the energy, the cellular energy of the entire body. It's used by the brain, very important chemical in every bodily process. And basically, he says over here, every substance has a characteristic set of resonant frequencies at which it vibrates or oscillates. And based on that principle, he has targeted the resonant frequency of ATP energy to shoot it with microwaves, to bombard it, to break it down, and hopefully to trigger the release of ATP, which is very useful, very high energy. And he says here that he knows it's dangerous. Baranski's well aware that microwaves can be dangerous. Monkeys have been killed within minutes by bombarding them with high-frequency radio waves. It depends on the angle, said the 36-year-old scientist. If you hit it from the top, it will kill. From the side, monkeys have endured 3 hours of irradiation without any trouble. There he is, one of the only known photographs of him saying what almost looks like a coded message. From the top, it will kill.
So need to know where that goes with this thread of Boskowitz, Lancelot Law White, and Baranski. And that takes us to this book called Future Science, Life Energies and the Physics of Paranormal Phenomena. and that was edited by John White and Stanley Krippner. This is one of the papers in that book. It's called The Possibility of a New Force in Nature by Ren Rexford Daniels. So I'm going to look at that close up. And so it says, in 1963, the scientific advisor to the President and acting Director of Telecommunications Management asked the Joint Technical Advisory Committee to look into the present use of the electromagnetic spectrum and make any recommendations needed for improvement and any possible new uses of the spectrum in the future. So it's basically looking at the electromagnetic spectrum. And this is the references that the paper cites. So we're going to look at a relevant citation closer up. So this is number 6. It cites Speransky, and it's Speransky's paper, The Frequency Spectrum and the Principle of Resonance Absorption. And that was published in 1963. Speransky was somebody who did experiments, and so it would be relevant to see that paper as to what experiments were involved for unified field theory. However, I'm not able to get that paper. It doesn't seem to be around anywhere. So we're going to look at the possibility of why that paper has seemingly disappeared. So is this book by Dr. Robert Becker, and it's called Cross Currents, the Perils of Electropollution, the Promise of Electromedicine. And this is what Wikipedia says about Robert Becker. He died in 2008. He was a US surgeon and researcher into electromedicine. He worked mainly as a professor at Upstate Medical Center in State University of New York. Becker was known for his work in bioelectricity, leading the early opposition to high voltage power lines. He has been named as one of the most influential figures in the area of anti-EMF activism. So he's an authority for some of the activists when they're opposing what's going on with electromagnetism. And this is the website dealing with Robert Becker's research. It tells you learn more about the father of electromedicine. So from this information source you've got Robert Becker, MD, pioneering researcher in the field of biological electricity, twice nominated for Nobel Prize, has pointed out the harmful effects of the misuse of electromagnetism. He explains in his book Cross Currents that research into this is suppressed by conspiracy in science. So straight into conspiracy. And he says the military organism was designed on the 10 milliwatt standard, and once in place it had to be defended against the possibility of non-thermal bio effects. The recognition and validation of these effects would mean the collapse of the total organism and the death of the US defense doctrine. So basically the military the US military has to defend itself from accusations that it's causing harmful health effects on people, and it has to do that because if it accepted that there was harmful effects, then that would damage their defense program. And the doctrine for that is the Command, Control, Communications and Intelligence Doctrine. And Dr. Becker says, my work on electrical control systems and the bioeffects of electromagnetic fields involved me in this controversy early in the 1970s. It quickly became apparent to me that evidence for non-thermal effects was viewed as a threat to national security. Safety was not a consideration because the military mindset at the time held that despite the lack of actual hostilities, we were in a state of war with the Soviet Union. It was believed that our ability to prevail in that conflict required the virtually unlimited use of electromagnetic energy for all four facets of the Command, Control, Communications, Intelligence Doctrine. This led to a policy of denying any non-thermal effects from any electromagnetic usage, whether military or civilian. Becker then goes on to explain that researchers are not allowed funding for certain topics. This is very interesting. It is within this area of physics that my theorizing has led me to become interested. That's according to Dr. Becker. So basically, what Boransky was investigating is now censored because it's a deemed national security effect on it. If Boransky was doing research in an area which wasn't censored, but suddenly it was realised it had to be censored. So he was free to do his research, but suddenly they realised, oh, we don't want anybody else to look into this. We'll cover up what he found out and we won't let anybody else research in that area. So things get covered up when there's a military significance, but leaves a lot of loose ends in the science literature. Reich and others can get accused of not having the evidence to back up their claims, but the evidence seems to have been made to disappear, and the reason it's made to disappear is because of national security considerations. Finished. Thank you. That's the end, explaining why there's this unified field theory cover up.